Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. It's my pleasure to work on another old reel. You saw these pretty much come up, and I had 4 or 5 of these that I got, and we said we would work on these as pandemic projects, and as this pandemic continues, we're continuing to do those projects. So a shout out to all of our first responders who may be watching my channel. Thank you for what it is that you're doing. Certainly a whole lot more important than what I'm doing here, but do appreciate all your work and service, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts. If you know somebody, tell them it. They're putting their lives on the line every day trying to help us through this coronavirus. Well, today we're going to work on a Shakespeare 1920 Wondereel. Now, 1920 does not mean the year that it was manufactured. 1920 is a model number for that. And this one was made in the USA, and it's, if you look down below here, it says Model GE. Well, Shakespeare's got a secret decoding ring that tells you what that is. On these older reels, look for the alpha pairing, and that'll tell you. In this case, I just checked it with my secret decoder. It was made in 1946. So that's kind of interesting, right? The first year back from the World War, and Shakespeare was manufacturing this reel, and it continues to work today. So go figure that one out, right? We've got a reel here that's, I guess, close to 75 years old, right? And it works. So let's take it apart. We'll show you how to service one of these if you have it, and what this reel was all about. So beautiful reel, and I know it's still collectible today, and folks certainly enjoy it. So we're going to start by, I like to take the handle off first if I can find a screwdriver for it. You don't want to use a bladed screwdriver that doesn't fit the slot almost perfectly, because you risk the consequences of rounding out the slots and then not being able to work with it properly. This handle I noticed was a little tight, so I'm just going to put a little bit of WD-40, of penetrating oil. It doesn't have to be WD-40, but I do find out that it tends to loosen up the handles. I believe this handle would be a Bakelite handle, but I'm not certain. It does have beautiful coloring to it and patina. These reels, I guess, are collectible. I don't collect reels, but I would assume that this one is collectible. I just enjoy them for the technology at the time. So Shakespeare, right? There was a fellow named William Shakespeare Jr. He was the one that invented the modern day level wind reel that you're seeing here. He did it in right around 1900. I don't know if it was 1898 or 1902. My memory fails me a little bit, but he was the inventor of it, and his idea on this level wind feature, the line guide feature, he was this was the Industrial Revolution, and he was working, I believe it was in Boston, Massachusetts, although he founded his company out in Kalamazoo, Michigan. He saw a threading unit that was putting thread onto bobbins for sewing machines, and he said, well, why can't we do something like that similarly for fishing reels, so that the line would spool evenly across the deal. And he did, and he patented it, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I've taken the 4 screws out. There's 2 in the reel seats, 2 here. We should be able to remove, and you'll see that the line design is not terribly complicated. We have a small spool gear. We have the level wind gear. We have this assembly held in by the 2 screws. Doesn't hurt to take them out because we're going to want to clean the channel anyway. And that assembly holds the gear that drives the spool and the gear that drives the level wind. And they're all on the same posts. So hopefully you're being able to see this. You'll notice that I wear a protective glove to keep oils and chemicals and the like off my hand. You notice that I just sprayed the handle with a penetrating oil. Well, I'd rather get the penetrating oil on the glove than on my hand. So I just want to put those 2 screws to the side because they are different from the other screws. Now we should be able to lift the case. The case has got a little bit of junk in it, so let's clean that out. Again, I'm going to use the WD-40 penetrating oil. So folks have asked me from time to time, is that a lubricant? And it's not, or at least it's not a good one. I mean, it's got some oil in it, so anything is better than nothing, but it has also got degreasing characteristics to it. So if you're putting grease on there and you're using penetrating oil, it's going to take the grease apart. I got a little stubborn build-up here, so I'm just using 4-0 steel wool. Let's just kind of get through that. You can also use a kitchen scrubby. I cut them into quarters, and you could use that just to rough it up as well. What I really wanted to do is just get the junk off of there. This is the inside that I showed you. That big gear is, it's going to sit, I always get this wrong. The big gear is going to drive the, let's see, the level wind. The little gear inside here is going to drive the spool. We should be able to remove that from the shaft now, and you want to do that just to make sure that this stays clean. I'm going to use a cotton swab for that. I'm not sure if that's buildup or just tarnish. That's just tarnish. Okay, and then you want to get a little bit of fishing reel grease. I'm going to use Penn Precision reel grease for that. And just a light coating onto the shaft here just to lubricate the inside of this to keep it spinning. You want to make sure that the teeth on all the gears are good. We saw that in operation, that it was fine. I'm going to put a little bit of grease onto both sides, both the big one and the smaller one inside, as well as the surface. And we're just going to remount that to the holder. Going to put a little bit of grease onto the shaft on the main gear here. That's going to go inside the bushing, and you have a brass bushing or something inside this silvered case. And then we're just going to line this up, reinstall, and you just heard that click. That click is because there's a little shoulder on that. Then I'm going to grab those two screws that go to the case. I'm going to reinstall those. Always easier said than done with me, with small pieces and parts. I apologize if you can't see me fumbling with this, but I'm fumbling with it. That's just the way it goes. So Shakespeare used the dating code. If you go on site and on a website and you put in the search dating code for Shakespeare reels, you should be able to come up with it. I'll put this down. I'm not having any luck getting these started here. Yeah, just do a search. You'll be able to pull it out. It's a very simple code. I think it goes A through H, 1 through 9, right? And then it reverses it. And goes kind of H through A for the second piece. And GE, as I mentioned, the G would be the 4. The E would be the 6. Makes sense, right? E, F, G. There would be two apart between the two. And that's how they coded it. So I don't know why I always have trouble with these small screws, but I do. So I apologize for the dead air here. I've learned that it can't be perfect. I don't even expect perfection, but I do try to do my best. And if it means that I stumble from time to time, well, it proves I'm human. All right, I'm going to grab that grease and just put a little bit into the cup where the spool is going to ride. I'm going to get a little bit more grease. Oh, we should take this off, make sure we're clean underneath here. And we are clean. It's we have a clicker here. Make sure that the clicker is functioning. I'm noticing that the click tongue is nice and pointed, so that hasn't had any wear on it. And then just going to put a little bit of grease into the back channel here. This should make a nice sound on the click. Again, year after the war, so imagine the soldiers coming back from war, and going back to the factories, and instead of making munitions or something, whatever Shakespeare may have been doing during the war effort, he certainly wasn't making fishing reels. Now they come back and they decide they're going to go pick up where they left off and do the fishing reels. How nice. All right, we're going to put this back on before we go over and address the pole. Sort of like today, we have this war on the coronavirus here, and we have plants that have been asked to make ventilators and masks and all kinds of things that would not be their normal production schedule. Special call out to anybody who's doing that, who might be working for GM or 3M or Ford or any of the companies that are contributing to that effort. And we will get back to normal, and we will get back to building cars and planes and other things that have become less important today as we try and adjust that effort. So the same thing was going on in World War II. And it's interesting when I look at the histories of fishing reel manufacturers, they actually wound up taking the technologies that they had learned from the war and applying them to building new fishing reels. And in particular, one of the things that was pretty exciting about post-war reels is that's where you saw the advent of the spinning reel. So for the first time, you had the spinning reel evolve post-war. There was a manufacturer called Langley. Interestingly enough, Langley was eventually acquired by Shakespeare, I believe. And Langley was an aluminum aircraft manufacturer during the war, and they took the aluminum technologies that they had learned and applied them to spinning reels. So yeah, there's a lot of fun things that have come out of the efforts, and I'm waiting to see what may come out of the efforts here with folks trying to address the pandemic and find faster ways to bring items to market and get them developed for commercial use. Okay, I'm going to swing this over now. We're going to come over here. We want to service that pawl. It's always fun when you're working on a reel that's 75 years old. You want to be careful. You want to use the right tools. You want to respect the parts that are there, because if you lose one, you probably have lost the reel. I've just removed the screw for the pawl cover. This is the pawl cover. This is the pawl. It's in there. I'm not going to remove that. It's working. I'm going to take a fishing reel oil and put a drop of oil into there. I'm going to put the cover right back on, and you'll have the pleasure of watching me struggle with a small screw again. But we will get this back together too. Let's try a little bit of grease here. So if you're home with this pandemic, like most of us are, kind of locked up, if you have a project you're not sure quite how to tackle, and you want to ask me about the particular reel you're working on, I'll be happy to try and do a video for you if I have that reel in the shop. If you're stumbling because you started a project and you got hung up somewhere, please send me a note. I'll try to unstumble you and get you back on track. Most of the time I get notes about, a bail spring flew off. You saw a video on that a little while ago that showed how to reset the bail springs on the spinning reels. And if I can help you, I certainly will. So we've oiled this down completely. We've cleaned it all. I'm just going to put a little bit of an oil onto the worm gear. You got a little bit of a chink chink going on there. Let's listen to that clicker. There you go, right? It was a nice clicker. There's a little bit of play there. We have an adjuster on the spool here. Let's see if we can take that out. There you go. That takes the little ching ching out of it, for the most part. And this is it. This is the Shakespeare Wondereel 1920, but again, we mentioned 1920 is not when the reel was made. It was made in GE, model GE, which is 1946. That little squirt that I put onto the handle has loosened up the handle nicely. And you know what? You want to take this one fishing? Take it fishing. There's nothing that can go wrong with this one. It certainly is working well after 75 years, and I hope when I reach 75 I'm working as well as this reel is. So if you've enjoyed that, please like it and subscribe. If you have a reel that you want to work on and you get stuck along the way, send me a note. You can comment in the trailer to this video, or you can send me a note to my email, which is in the business card that follows. If you have a reel that you need service on but you don't want to service it yourself, well, use that same business card to contact me by email, and I'll give you some information about how to send that reel to me for service. So I hope you've appreciated it. Thank you for watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.